Next time, I'm just going to
Take it down.
I've actually never done it.
Yeah, you're going to.
I feel like it's going to be
I feel like it could be chunky. Depending on how you're walking with it.
No, wouldn't that be so? It's a golf course, isn't it? No, it's just fun. Yeah. Right.
It's literally just that. Give people these tricks that are too easy, tell them it's exercise. So
you guys ready to get started?
not so.
If you want to give me applause, go ahead. Yeah. So I have to apologize, my voice is a little raspy, so I'm trying to enunciate the best I can today. Anyone need any wine, water, or anything else before we get started? Everyone's good? If you guys need a wine break, just let me know. I can stop and we can get wine. We can focus on what's doing.
Couple more seats over, guys. 2 more, 1 more here.
So how many people are here tonight new to Striation since, like first time visitors? So that's good. So thank you for coming. Thank you for taking the time to learn about something new. A lot of you that are currently here have heard about Isometrics. Hence why you've taken the time to bring something because it's been somehow influential in your life. So thank you. So the things we're going to be talking about tonight may be new to some of you, might not be new to some of you. Right? So a lot of things when you're looking at exercise, just so we can get on a common ground, right? Because I'm going to tell you that we're going to start talking about not moving. Right? Historically, what people believe is that you need to move to increase the quality of your lives. Right? So what I want to sort of define what we're going to talk about. Tonight we're going to talk about isometric movement. Right? And what that is the type of movement. Right? Where you can all sort of agree that movement is essential to life. Right? Is anyone sort of in disagreement of that? Right? Movement's pretty essential. The problem is, what we focused on is, one type of movement. We focused on dynamic movement, which is the moving in the movement phase. Right? So there's 2 distinct types of movement, just to sort of give you a framework. Right? There's isometric based movement, which I'm going to sort of state as the stuff that gives you stability. It's the stuff that kind of holds you together. And how we'll phrase dynamic movement, it's the stuff that allows you to go from A to B. Right? It allows you to travel through space. Right? So a lot of us right now, we're sort of sitting in still positions. Right? So let's call that an isometric. Right? How many people here usually work 8 to 10 hours a day? Right? Brian's up to 16. So, thank you. So you look at some of those things, right? And what we do is we train, we sort of say, okay, well, we need to move, so let's move. Versus let's look at stability, right? Let's actually be stable, right? Let's look at how we're going to move. Let's take a still image of that frame of motion and sort of say, can I control this? Can I control this? Can I control this? Can I control this? And once you have control, by all means, learn to go like this. That's essential, right? There's 2 components of movement. Right, so what we're going to sit here today and talk about really are 6 key points. And, the title of the talk tonight is, 6 ways isometric strength training can improve, basically impact your life. Right? So you're just looking at it, over here we got sort of some key touch points we're going to talk about. And the talk is going to be about 25 minutes to a half hour, so it's not going to be too long tonight. Right? Cool things like, how does isometrics lower your blood pressure? How does isometrics eliminate joint and muscle pain? How does isometrics increase muscle strength? How does it fire up your metabolic activity? So how does not moving actually burn more calories than moving? Right? So interesting when you start looking at stuff like this. Right? You know, a lot of us, I'm going to look and we're going to say we're above 40s. You know, so we're going to sort of phrase the conversations to the above 40s. And some of us over here in this corner are a little bit younger. I think they're 18, 19. Exactly. Right? So stuff like strengthening your bones matters. Right? Avoiding falls, avoiding osteoporosis, osteopenia, stuff like that. And most importantly, what I think is the most important part of isometrics, it actually slows down the aging process. Right? And that's a pretty bold statement to make. Right? But when you look at all the research, it's actually quite factual. Right? Because isometrics affects bone growth, it accelerates metabolic activity, it increases your muscular strength, it eliminates joint muscle pain, and it reduces your blood pressure, which are all associated with aging. So if you look at that, you go, wow, Stella, how are you? Welcome. Stella's boyfriend, husband, guy that we don't know?
Paul.
Paul, nice to meet you, sir. Thank you for coming. There's wine and cheese over there. If you want, just help yourself. Feel free to get up. Don't mind me at all. I'm just talking about it. Right, so things that we're looking at from an aging perspective is just how do we better the quality of our life, right? We oftentimes, and just for clarity's sake and figuring out who I'm going to offend, I know Brian's a medical doctor. Any other medical doctors in the room? Nobody? Okay, cool. One thing when you look at a lot of stuff, you know, I like to stick to what I know, right? But there's a lot of proclaimed experts out there. And you look at it and you just go, okay, well, find the right person to discuss the right subject matter with. Right? I've had many conversations with some orthopedic surgeons who are, by God, they're smart people, right? But they're so specialized that they forget a lot of the stuff. And I was having a conversation a couple of years ago with an orthopedic surgeon, and we were talking about knee function. And so my question to him was, well, how is your surgery going to impact the hip? And his response was, why am I concerned with the hip? I'm a knee specialist. And it comes back to the point, well, we're looking at structural anatomy and everything. It's like, here's your femur. The hip is just the other end. So it'd be like sort of saying, I'm going to pull on this, and I'm going to have no impact over here. It's not possible, right? So it's a cool thing. So I like to talk about isometrics. You know, I'm pretty astute in that area, you know, from an exercise perspective. My background, as the 21st person in the world with my dual designations, they are resistance training specialist mastery level designation. So I studied under the world's foremost expert on exercise mechanics. His name's Tom Purvis. He's out of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. So if you've been on any type of Nautilus exercise product, he was probably inspirational, I guess I'd use, in designing that. He was the pitchman for Bowflex for about 14 years on TV, so you've definitely seen him. And he's arguably the smartest person on this planet in exercise mechanics. Privileged to study under him since about 2002, 2003. Then I got a designation as muscle activation technique specialist, and I don't know if you guys know that or not, or what it is. It's a systematic approach at identifying and correcting muscle imbalance that relates to impaired function. The majority of the people in here that I know have been through that sort of subject area, been through treatments and everything like that, and it's a great sort of way to identify and correct those muscle imbalances, right? But what I want to talk about today is really just the isometric side, right? I currently have 7 patents on the world's, basically the most complete isometric exercise apparatus ever developed as far as I'm concerned. You can literally restrain all human joint motion on this. So for every sort of, you know, whether you want to look, feel, and function better, faster, it's a great way to do it. As a thank you for what, you know, showing up tonight and sort of listening to me ramble on about something I love, what we're going to be doing is going to be giving away 3 half-hour sort of sessions on the Isophit, and that will be with some of our trainers and maybe them at the end of this sort of session. So thank you once again. And if you, for some reason, don't want to use them, give them to somebody that you think would. Right? So don't just sort of leave them and not utilize them. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is sort of how, you know, isometrics influences your blood pressure, right? And when you're looking at blood pressure, you guys are all familiar with like the 2 numbers, the 120 over the 80 type of thing. So the systolic, that top number, and the diastolic, that bottom number. So usually speaking, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but when you're bordering on hypertension, it's 140 over 90, give or take. You know, I don't think it would change that too much. right? So one of the things that you're looking at is you quickly reduce those levels, right? So you, in order to get sort of normalized blood pressure, they say a good blood pressure is about 120/80, right? So one of the things that they found out, and with isometrics, is ability to rapidly accelerate blood pressure loss, or the reduction of blood pressure, right? To the tune of almost 20 millimeters of mercury in about 8 weeks, right? And people go, that's kind of substantial. And to put things in perspective, most pharmaceutical agents do not come close to that, right? And specifically without having to sort of take something with a significant amount of side effects, right? Such as pharmaceutical agents, right? And they're doing better and they're getting less side effects, but they usually mask the other sort of pain and medications and stuff like that. Right, but with isometrics, so we jump back to about 1969, right? Actually, we'll go back 1 year earlier. How many of you heard of the term aerobics? Pretty much everyone? So that was coined by a guy named Dr. Kenneth Cooper, right? Esteemed, I think he's got almost 90 books to his name now, heavily funded by the medical establishment down in the States. And, basically, if you're looking at doing cardiovascular training, if you're looking at sort of the reduction of blood pressure, the statistical number you usually see is about 3 millimeters of mercury lost, and that's that measured number. With about 90 minutes a week for 6 months is what you usually see with basically light cardio condition without diet modification and without any real other changes in your life. It's about 3 millimeters of mercury. So with isometrics, it's about 20 millimeters of mercury, give or take sort of, call it 16 to 20, most of the research shows. And that's with 8 weeks, and that's actually with only 24 minutes of committed time per week, right? So that's a significant change, right? So, and this guy, in 1969, this guy named Dr. Ronald Wiley, and just a little bit of background on him. So he was a U.S. Air Force research scientist. So pretty astute if the U.S. Air Force is going to come knocking on your door to figure out, okay, how am I actually going to increase the blood pressure of my fighter pilots so they don't black out under G-force, right? And you look at that and go, okay, 1969, you're in the midst of the Vietnam War, or right at the beginning. So you're not looking to lose too many pilots, and you're certainly not looking to increase your expenditure of sort of the airplanes, right? So it's a pretty esteemed guy that they went to. And his goal and his hypothesis was basically isometric exercise is going to increase your blood pressure. Right? So the problem was, his hypothesis was wrong. So what they found with the fighter pilots during G-force training is they took their non-dominant hand and were actually squeezing control stick, so that sort of joystick, right? And they found that over the course of a month, all the fighter pilots that had slight hypertension, because their goal was increasing the tension, it actually started dropping, right? And it was so profound, that currently, to put things into perspective, there is 1 billion people currently suffering from hypertension. That's 1/9, or actually 1/7 of the world's population currently has hypertension, right? In US dollars, the global expenditure right now is $370 billion, right? Figure Africa doesn't spend much. Figure South America doesn't spend much. So it's really a North American and European sort of expenditure for the most part, right? So, but what they figured in 1969 was you actually had the ability to take your left hand if you're right-handed and squeeze it at 30% maximum voluntary muscle traction. So that'd be like me squeezing this bar, not very hard, for 2 minutes times 4 repetitions per day. And what they found was you were able to actually significantly reduce your blood pressure, right? So just think about that for a second. And all the people that you guys know with blood pressure issues, right? I know Brian, when he came in, he had some slight elevated blood pressure issues. We managed to work out some of that, and it lowered quite quickly, I believe, which was awesome, and some other things, right? So just think about that and resonate. And what we're going to do is actually craft an email and send this all to you, so that way you still have it, right? So some of the other stuff that we're going to look at, it eliminates joint and muscle pain. So not moving actually increases and reduces joint pain. So what I want to use as an analogy, that you guys are all this beautiful high-end Ferrari, right? You guys are all these awesome luxury automobiles, right? But loosen all your bolts. And Stella, how quickly is your car going to break down going around a track?
Right away.
And pretty big. You're going to be rattly. You're going to be rattly. Almost going to function like an old person, right? It's going to be like just crackety and all this sort of crap, right? You're not there yet, but, and hopefully you never get there. Not meaning you die, but more just, you actually age well, right? But you look at it, it's like just imagine the isometric is just a way to tighten up your muscular system, right? So there's better congruency with joint contact surfaces. So if I'm walking and all of a sudden I have aberrant joint motion because I have instability, right? Say I stretched for a little bit, and this is another conversation. We can have a whole seminar on this one. But stretching creates looseness. We can all agree on that? What the fuck? You want stuff loose? Here's what I would question. Like if this is loose, it actually distracts. If it distracts, it narrows. If you got a narrow artery, that's usually associated with high blood pressure. So we might not want to look at that. Right? So if we have a way actually increases joint stability and the firing rate of muscle, right? And we were comparing this to some dynamic-based exercise earlier. So when we're looking at dynamic-based exercise, that's the up phase, so that's concentric, and usually the lowering phase, which is eccentric. So approximation, separation type thing of the joint contact surface. Right? So one of the things you're looking at usually with muscle pain is as you're going through these ranges, you're also creating heat, friction, and inflammation. When I'm, pressing up into this bar, there's not really any inflammation. Studies show that there's actually not even any oxidative stress to the tissue, which is one of the things that they're now sort of linking to aging, disease, obviously inflammation and stuff like that. Right? So those are some cool things just about isometrics on how they can do that. And as I sort of stated earlier, isometrics is really learning how to create a muscle contraction without actually moving. Right? And we'll demonstrate some of this stuff after. Right? So increase muscle strength. So I often joke about this with my business partner Sam, who was there a second ago, he might still be back there. Right? So if you can lift it, the object's not heavy enough. Right? So 100% effort means you can't move it. Right? We usually relate stuff to like a 1 repetition maximum, which is a percentage of the maximum. Right? So it's like kind of like, well, if I'm pulling against an immovable object, such as, let's say I wanted to do a deadlift. Okay. So if I'm going to pull up on this bar, Leo over here can probably pull 600 pounds. I'm not that strong, but let's say I can pull 350, 400 pounds. Well, I can actually generate a greater level of torque force pulling here, right? And then I can, as I get tired, the cool thing about here, as opposed to the other world, be it the dynamic world, as you fatigue in the dynamic world, risk goes up. As I fatigue in the isometric world, risk goes down. Because I just can't generate as much force anymore. Right? So that's kind of cool in the sense that it's safer, because you're not having to deal with motion, which is inertia. So you get rid of the inertial effects of motion. You get rid of the risk of accelerated weight, without you quote unquote changing it due to fatigue. Right? So that obviously has better levels of joint health as well. Right? So that's kind of cool. And the best part about an isometric versus a concentric and eccentric. So when you're looking at the actual activation rate of tissue, how efficient is the firing rate of that muscle? Concentric historically is measured at about 86%. Eccentrics is measured at around 87%. The really cool thing about isometrics is about 95.2 through 100. So you're getting 100% activation of your muscles. All right, which is really kind of cool, because now that brings us into our next subject area, fat loss or metabolic activity. So we call it for what it really is. Right, so my goal is to burn more calories for the same time and similar effort. Right, what they were able to measure in about 1996 was they looked at maximum sprinting, right? So, and you guys, maximum sprinting all the time, Grace? Yeah, exactly. 100% effort all the time. Right, so Grace here goes out, Grace sprints at a maximum level, right? So the study was at an 18-year-old, 19-year-old university person, so we'll forgive you for this time. Right, so 18 to 19-year-old sort of university sort of student, maximum sprinting, they're pretty good athletes and stuff like that. So what they found was they were measuring the vastus lateralis, and they hooked it up to sort of see the metabolic activity of just specifically that muscle. So 30 seconds of maximum sprinting compared to 30 seconds of maximum isometrics was on par for caloric expenditure. One has significantly more risk. One has a significantly more stress and trauma sprinting. And it actually, because well, most people can't sprint for 30 minutes, but you can actually do about basically 30 minutes of maximum isometrics when you actually spread it around. Right? So your caloric expenditure is quite staggering how high you can get up to. And to the point, like I was working with one gentleman, and I was going back 2 years, so we'd just gotten our first Isophit. So he lost in 10 weeks 38 pounds doing 2 hours a week of isometrics, right? And it was in conjunction with basically an hour of cardiovascular training, right? He was 28 years old, he still drank every weekend. He still ate the same garbage food because that's what 28-year-old kids do. You know, so it was literally just having a better muscular system to burn more calories, right? And the cool thing is, and as I sort of discussed earlier, because we're a little bit older and we start caring about stuff like bone health and osteoarthritis, osteopenia, and osteoporosis, which is just basically a simple response of lack of force, right? Because one of the cool things is we focus on the calcium side of things and saying, oh, take calcium, take calcium, take calcium. But nobody ever tells you, just go exercise, go walk, go apply force to your muscular system and your bone structure in some pretty significant sort of patterns, right? So one of the things, there's this company out there, and they're pretty awesome actually, a company called Biodensity. So they actually deal with basically the osteoporosis and osteopenia world. So their goal with their machine, which is $48,000, which is pretty awesome, it's got some force measures and stuff like that. But basically, it's like doing a maximum isometric. So it's like a leg press and pushing it into an immovable object. So what they found with 5 minutes of use per week, at maximum effort, or maximum compressive force is what they call it, was there was a 7.9% increase in bone density with 5 minutes of use. There's not a supplementation on the planet that touches that, right? And it's like you look at that and you go, okay, cool. What better way that from an exercise perspective is there that yields this, right? So I got a cool little quote over here, right? So it's isometric exercise is unique in its ability to rapidly increase muscle strength and tone faster than that seen in dynamic exercise. That's kind of cool. So it's better than dynamics, you know, if you're looking at, well, what's it yield? Okay, the next one's from the American Heart Association. Well, this one's pretty cool. So isometric resistance training studies suggest this form of exercise has the potential for the largest reduction in systolic blood pressure. And that is directly compared to endurance training and resistance training in a dynamic-based output perspective, right? And it's to the tune, and I forgot to bring down my photograph of this, but basically if I was like a race, so here's isometrics out here, dynamics is way back there. This takes less time to achieve that much greater result, which is kind of interesting. And as I said, the email I sent you guys out will include a whole bunch of different slides and stuff like that as well. And more importantly, the American College of Sports Medicine, it says basically it helps reduce pain, which is pretty cool. And they're still looking for the mechanism. So I'm not even going to say that I have a clue outside of increased stability, right, and increased force output. So if you have a better and more stable joint, there's going to be less aberrant joint motion, so that's going to reduce inflammation. So that I'm quite comfortable to say, right? But as to the mechanism behind the actual reduction in pain, they're still searching. I don't know if you've read anything on this yet. So Brian's he's an anesthesiologist, so pretty smart guy. He sort of specializes in pretty much pain, isn't it? Yeah. Right. So it's it's pretty cool when you're looking at just the benefits of isometrics. They're so profound. And like here are 6 things that kind of influence every aspect of your life. And as we have the number 6, how it sort of slows down the effects of aging. You're just looking at it and you're going, well, it does all of them, right? It is kind of the magic pill, if you will, in exercise. And I'm not saying don't do dynamic exercise. What I am saying, though, is add isometric exercise, right? And what you'll find is the results that you've been chasing with your normal exercise routine, you're actually able to achieve it right? Because whether you're a power athlete, where you're looking at lifting the greatest amount of mass, traveling at the greatest amount of time, and whatever the other stuff is, right? You're looking at the equation from critical power, right? And this was actually developed in 1965, so we're going back, like, call it 50 years, and we've overlooked a lot of this stuff, right? The equation's dynamic output, dynamic force output, to be specific, and isometric output. But isometrics is actually 50% of the equation, right? And historically, we've done nothing, right? And as I said, when you're looking at sort of the expenditures globally for hypertension, we're looking at $370 billion of wasted money. You look at obesity, right? You look at osteoarthritis, and you look at chronic pain. That's $1.2 trillion that the U.S. economy, not even the global economy, spends per year trying to combat this, right? And we're at the forefront at Striation 6 of this methodology, right? And I'm pretty confident to say that because I'm the creator of this, right? And there's not a lot of people out there who will tell you this. There's not a lot of people that actually understand what I just said, so I'm okay to repeat it. But as I sort of stated earlier, each one of you tonight is going to get sort of an hour and a half with one of our isometric sort of strength trainers tonight. Take the opportunity, pick their brain, because they're really smart, eager people. And I'm not going to say they know everything, but they're definitely in the right direction. They can help you all get an understanding. And with that email I sort of put out the other day, we gave you a framework for a 3-day exercise program. Right? Get in and learn that. So whether your goal is running, your goal is weight loss, your goal is increased joint stability or reduction of pain, this will help you. Whether you have an infant, or not an infant, it doesn't work with people under 6 usually, but getting somebody who's just new to hockey, right? Who's learning sport. Because what we do is we rush kids into sport all the time because for some reason we think sport's healthy. Sport's fun. The interaction is fun. The interaction's actually healthy. But the actual sport itself is not, right? If you look at some of the statistics on it, you take soccer, for example, right? 13-year-old soccer player, she has an ACL tear, which is quite common in 13-year-old girls. She's 86% more likely to have osteoarthritis by the time she's 40. So if you're doing your kid a favor, get them stable first before you even think about putting them in sport, right? It's very, very simple. It's the safest form of exercise. It yields the fastest, the greatest level of muscle strength. Right? So just think about that when you're talking to your friends and your peers and everything like that, because we can help everyone all the way down to 6 years old. If they're willing to listen, and if they're in gymnastics, they're willing to listen. If they're in ballet, they're willing to listen. If they're in football, they're willing to listen to a coach, not a parent. Because I know I have a 6.5-year-old. So, so you look at that, and she's actually pretty good. But you look at it and you just go, we have the ability to make this world a safer place and save a ton of governments a lot of money. We should start doing shit right. So that's pretty much all I'm here today to talk about. So
You want me to say something?
you certainly can.
Probably, has anybody used the machine before? So some people have experienced the Isophit. For me, I kind of found Brad by accident, and I was looking at rehabbing myself a bit. I had a sacroiliac injury, and it occurred last summer. So I was not able to do dynamic exercise very well in terms of weight training, and it really affected my lifestyle. I have a back problem. It really wasn't my back; it was my sacroiliac, and it recurred. I had some chiropractic therapy, but I wanted to get back into some type of resistance training because of all the benefits that Brad's outlined. And so I basically was assessed here, and we came up with a program that I was able to do. I did the program, it helped a lot, to the point where I felt a lot better. My back was a lot better. I got a lot of other benefits like core strengthening, a little lowering my blood pressure. And the workout it's very prescriptive, and it's focused, so it's not like you don't sit there, like you do it exactly as ordered. The measurements, the machine, the way it's designed is, it's very, very specific. So I would recommend that people not just attempt to do the exercises without some type of in-service. It looks like a very, oh, well, how difficult could that be? But every little hole and every little groove and every little thing you see on here, and it's very detailed, we spent a lot of time thinking about it, obviously, is designed for a purpose. And the force that you apply against the resistance that you apply against these objects need to be precise. I think you can learn it, obviously. I did learn it, how to do it, but it's important that you get some type of training, and I think I felt that I had a really big benefit from it. And I did read some of the studies that Brad sent me, and they're peer-reviewed journals, right? It's not like they're not, so everything he stated is true, but it does take discipline. I won't say it doesn't. It takes some type of discipline. You have to be disciplined and focused when you do it. Anybody who's used the Isophit, would you agree?
We're addicted.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not hard now.
But it is like it does. There's a learning curve,
Yeah.
and it
There
is.
is.
And people think, oh, it's not much of a workout. It is
It's the hardest workout.
such a hard workout.
difficult.
I'm not that fit, okay, but the guys I've brought here, or friends who've done it, it's so focused, right? It's like the original Tabata workouts. It's hard off, but it's very, very focused. So I really think it's a great workout. I think it got me to where I needed to be. I wish I had one in my basement.
You can arrange that.
Yeah.
$239 a month, 60 months is yours, buddy.
So, but talk to Brad and the trainer.
Thank you, sir.
My experience.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of the stuff, like they're calling it the Fountain of Youth down in Arizona. There were multiple hip sort of replacement people down in Arizona, aging population, and it's giving them their quality of life back, right? And that's essential, right? It's is it going to sort of reduce wrinkles? Yeah, well, that's to be determined. It's about actually looking at sort of how you live your lifestyle. But you look at it and you just go, okay, it's about how you function, it's how you feel, and really it's how you feel about yourself inside. And this, I mean, at the end of the day, it's really good for training the internal performance of your muscular system. And subsequently, every other system that's required that you be held together properly. Right? Because as I sort of briefly touched upon, is if I have a loose shoulder, right? This was my knock on stretching. The artery has to narrow. The nerve has to have stress on it. The ligament has to have stress on it as well. Right? And if you look at what a grade 1 ligament sprain, as stated by the American osteoporosis, basically the Orthopedic Society, sorry. So the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons state that a grade 1 ligament sprain is stretching of a ligament. Right? So if this is naturally distracted by gravity and mass and load, and all of a sudden, you stretch it, you loose it. Let's say you're doing an extended period of downward dogs and stuff like that. So all of a sudden, what will happen is that actually becomes loose, because that's the goal. Goal wasn't maybe high blood pressure. The goal maybe wasn't some of this other stuff. Those are some things to think about. So instead of like doing a downward dog where I'm sort of loaded this way, if you were just sort of here on the Isophit, and you were going like this, which is basically the inverse of a downward facing dog, well, guess what? You can get a lot stronger this way than you ever will with your ass, right? So, and the joint stresses are significantly different, right? Most people are doing yoga because they want increased range of motion. Well, Isometrics actually crushes stretching for increased range of motion to the tune of about 112% better. Right? Stretching creates looseness. Looseness creates laxity. Laxity doesn't create force. What do you need to actually generate movement? Is force, contraction, muscular tissue. So, but as I said, I'm done talking. So if you guys got any questions, so covered.
I just wanted to add that you do a hard workout on this, and the next day you're not really feel like you hurt something.
No.
Your recovery, you don't really feel that you really did something crazy, like if you go in and do something crazy with the weights or
Well, that recovery is usually when you're looking at sort of the tissue damage, to call it for what it is that eccentric loading. When you're slowly lowering and controlling it, actually there's this type of structure within the muscle cell called the sarcomere. So that sarcomere actually damages. So that's that recovery, that DOMS that says 2 days soreness, right? You don't have eccentrics really. Like, an argument can be made, and I'll have that next week. But that, when you're pulling into an immovable object, well, there's no real eccentric. There's no inflammation. There's no need to recover from it. And the cool thing is, as you sort of at maximum force output, as you fatigue, it changes weight in real time, right? We actually dubbed that force matching technology, right? That's the kind of cool feature of Isophit, right? It's just that force matching technology, right? And one of the other things that I'm going to sort of briefly touch on, we also have a program called the Isometric Training System. It's void of the machine. It's actually like similar to Pilates, where Pilates have a mat program. So we actually have a whole program that will educate you guys on how to self-assess, self-correct, and prevent the future occurrence of muscle imbalance, right? So it's pretty important. You know, we got several people here. You know, Jenna's awesome at it, and Sebastian back there is getting familiar with it. Colleen's exceptional at teaching it. You know, you look at that and you go, it's a 6-day exercise program that really gives you a foundation on how you're going to learn to move, right? And it's 11 different exercises per day. It's looking at anywhere from a time commitment of 7 minutes all the way up to an hour, depending on what you have available to give. But if you've never thought about motion, never thought about self-assessment, how the hell do you know what to do? Right? It's like you go to the gym, and here's one of the biggest faults of the exercise industry. Right? If I was an accountant, right, and I had 2 columns that say left and right, here we have 2 columns, left and right. Currently, my right column is at 8. My left column's at 6. Would any of you ever expect that if I add 2 to both sides, that it would ever be balanced? No, none of you. You would all say, Brad, you're an idiot. It's not going to happen. It's absolutely impossible that you will ever be balanced if you add 2 to both columns. And you're right. I would totally agree with you. That's the problem with the exercise industry. We are all usually unbalanced. We show up and we do a balanced exercise program. So what we actually do is we actually accelerate regenerative change. And I'm not saying don't exercise. It's not what I said. Learn what to exercise. What's appropriate for the given day. Right? And that's where the isometric training system comes in as a beautiful framework. Right? This is how I need to sort of go, oh, column right. Well, maybe I shouldn't add 2, because what that's going to do is that's actually going to go to 10. This might, over here, if I was at 8 and 6 before, this will actually go down to 10 and 4. So I actually create muscle imbalances. So if I'm looking here and I'm rotating this way, and this is this far, and this way goes in, but I'm running, you know, I'm going to reinforce the strong side. So spinally perspective, it's like I'm taking my cap and I'm going like this. If I'm turning it one way, it goes loose. If I'm turning the other way, it's getting tighter. Right? So it's kind of like if I keep turning this way, turning this way, turning this way, it works inverse of that. It actually gets tighter. So now I'm walking around going, hey, Shannon, how's it going? I haven't seen you in a while. You know, I'm going to give you a hug and I'm going to knock you out with my shoulders. You know, it doesn't work that way. So as opposed to sort of saying, okay, well, if I knew how to assess that way and I knew how to assess that way, well, if this was 8 and this was like sort of over here, I don't need to practice that side. I'm really good with it. So spend some time going this way. And the isometric training system, that'll actually give you that framework. And it's a beautifully designed program. Thank you, Shannon. So she was the graphic designer behind it. So give her the plug for it. And you know, it works. The Toronto Blue Jays took it in 2009, and we've subsequently been home run leaders pretty much ever since. So Jose Batista publicly thanked mathematics. That's slightly off. It's a 10-point coordinate system, but I'm a little bit bitter still. But that's okay. I'm working on it in therapy. But those are those little things. If you know how to assess yourself, you know how to correct yourself, you actually can replace therapeutic intervention, which that's my life mandate. Because people don't need therapy. They need to be educated on what to do. So, any other questions? If not, there's more wine, there's more cheese. Currently here is 0. So yeah, this one's actually going to Cathay, Texas. We actually boarded them delayed. Normally 4. Let's say 4. So yeah, so we have 4 normal. They'll be back next week.
I see.
Yes. right? It's a pain point for Mary. So she's bitterly angry at me because she's not without them. So, but we have 4 units here. We're bringing in probably 20 group exercise versions early next year. So it'll be basically group exercise programs are all on this. Yeah, it's a much smaller version. You've never.
You'll have to lay on it.
Yeah, you'll have to experience what it is, right? And right now we have isometric training classes, right, which is basically an F1 class, so I highly recommend those as well. So Jenna teaches a couple, Sam teaches a couple, you know, so they're spread out throughout the week and stuff like that. So, but yeah, you know, get on and experience it, it'll blow your mind, right? This, as Brian sort of mentioned, specificity is second to none. It's an instantaneous reaction, right? You've never been on it, have you? Dave. I went to him, he's closer. So what's your name again? Paul. Paul, come over here. What's that? Do you have any like sort of sharp objects on your hand? Just because, slide down for a second. Head's going to be down at this end. Head's up at that end. Yeah, so because Paul's never been on this before. So lie on your back. Your exercise. Slide down. So you play volleyball, so you'll like this. So one of my kids just said this is basically the national touch height record. So he increased his vertical 3 inches in 7 hours of time on the Isophit. 12, basically touches 12'3". So lie down. So it's the fourth highest measured volleyball jump touch in history, actually. Right, so what I want you to do is, obviously we don't have any foam here, but just drive straight up. Do you feel that right in your thigh? Yeah. That pretty instant? Drive harder. Do you feel that more in your thigh? Yeah, pretty much right there. Now, if Paul turns his leg out to the side, feel how you don't feel it there anymore. You feel it there, right? Into that groin a little bit. I'm not going to go too high up on it. Right? Turn that in. Right? Paul's going to feel that right there. Right? So I can actually start dictating Paul's function. Right? I've taken out all the guesswork of exercise. So if you want to actually work a specific body part, well, we now can. And so you can jump off it. It's when you sort of experience it. Right? But one of the cool things is, like, who here has heard that you can't spot reduce fat? Right? Pretty much everyone, right? So they've actually now disproven that. You actually can spot reduce fat. Static mechanical loading. And that actually came from Tel Aviv University, so it's a good old reputable university that really, they got their shit together when it comes to studying. Right? So they actually looked at it and they sort of said, hey, isometrics can actually, sort of static mechanical loading, which is the exact same, different phrasing for isometrics, can actually spot reduce fat, which is kind of cool, right? So it actually increases the blood flow to the actual fat tissue in the localized area by about 7-fold, which is something I didn't know about. I thought was pretty interesting, right? So that's how it sort of helps accelerate that metabolic activity associated with that tissue. But anyways, I will talk all night long. Get out of here. Oh, sorry.
Which exercise would you do to get rid of the love handles then?
Well, okay. You got to look at 360 degrees. Right, so sorry.
Not a short answer.
Right, but simply put, how quickly you can go 360 degrees around your stomach, right? That's going to be working right here. A little bit further back. A little bit further back. A little bit further back. That's different. That's different. Right, then I would just sort of swing it over to the other side and do the other side. So literally, you can actually do 360 degrees with very little effort. It's just knowledge, right? So, any other questions? People, no? Good, done. So thank you guys very much for coming. So I also wanted to introduce some of our trainers as well. So back here we have my business partner Sam Trotta. So he's like a god when it comes to isometrics. So and Sebastian over here. So he's not intern, but
apprentice.
I'm learning. He's one of our apprentices. So you know, for the individuals who are looking for a cost savings with a guy who's really freaking smart.
Let's say cost effective.
Cost effective, high value. His time is basically it's $40, but you got to buy 10 up front. So for 10 hours, it's $400, right? So it's great value, right? He needs experience. He's well versed in the isometrics. He's well versed in strength training. You can look at him; he's kind of a beast, right? But he's new, right? So we got him sort of value priced at $400 for 10 hours. Now with this, with the Isometrics, you're all entitled to 3 sessions, so you can take that. Jenna was here earlier, I think she had to leave. And Colleen, who's my wife, she's awesome at this. She's actually been around the longest relative to the world of Isometrics, and because she's been there to support me all the time, so you know, she can get into her schedule as well. But you know, as I said, you guys are all entitled. Just make sure you just been checked off on the list so we can actually credit your account for those sessions. And that's it. So thank you.
Thank you.
For anybody who wants to jump into my Isometrics class that I'm running in the next couple of minutes, we're just at the end of the hallway.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Fair enough.
Okay. Water. Do you have the water, honey?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I did.
My daughter. Congratulations.
So we went to meet her.
It wasn't easy. Sort of like
Awesome. Well done. 4:31. She can party like 6. Yeah. So, what's the I haven't been out like this for yeah, maybe this should be a little too much. You like that?
I'm not doing this, but
I know you are.
yeah.
I know you.
But
Yeah.
we'll figure it out.
Awesome.
Well, just you just give us money and we'll. Oh, sorry. That's right. Welcome and give us money.
Well, Jenna, can we have
Yeah, so on my house Saturday. Yeah. But only because I never remember to.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
He's
That's
gonna have,
So just go
again,
watch
on
that.
Wednesday next week.
That's it. See you soon. Good night.
I'll just book you in for Wednesday and Saturday. Wednesday and Saturday, next week, Saturday.
Yeah,
Next week?
not this Saturday, this Saturday. Yeah.
What you do is just reach back to your own.
Good.
You're in this weekend, last week, class.
Is that it?
Yes.
Right, talk about the muscle memory stuff, right?
Work.
Well, that wasn't hard. I could remember that.
All day.
Stuff is
Sorry.
stimulating.
Because we had
You know,
movies.
you feel that right there.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I just met you. And I can tell you
I
feel
was,
that right there.
I really
Right?
did a good job.
She was really good, yeah.
Yeah? You're supposed to.
I
I
just
honestly,
go a lot
like,
of
didn't
areas all
expect
you
at all.
Oh, good. But somebody has to tell me.
Even though I didn't, I was tired, but I
Yeah.
didn't feel
Like your back.
Yeah, and the recovery was very fast. It was just, for example, a night
Yeah, yeah.
after the race.
Oh, good. Oh, so good. That's good.
Right, so those
It's because of this, all of this.
Well, you're doing the work. All the sweating.
Would they ask
So
for,
do you want to
I
go
have
through the
my
new one?
issues?
Let's go through it. This is the new one, yeah.
Like my
So what's the differences with the old?
Just wanted to
How's it
talk to
working
him a
out?
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah? Oh, you wanted to see the gym?
Yeah.
Oh, is this a new development?
So
The next generation? This is, I think, the third generation.
Okay.
I sold my other ones in area.
So there was the original, which was
The first time I did it, I went on.
it's like an antique. And then this one is the third generation.
Jump on us
So
now.
we sold the old ones,
Yeah.
and then
Party
brought
starts
this one
next
out.
week.
So
Well, we had them up
so
until
some
the week
little
when
things to
one of
polish
them
off,
was
so they're just
just
a little more
So I was like, okay, well, so I wasn't gonna tell you no.
stuff like that on the
So
old
sit
ones.
down
This
here.
one works much better.
Okay.
And you're all healed and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, my
A little
collarbone's
bit more
good.
padding on the
I
bottom.
actually never use this machine to feel it.
Well, no, just go sit down back here, just watch the edge over there and watch the neck, right? So just for your triceps, right, so you press your arm back into
Just like this?
yeah, right, feel it instantly, you feel it, right? So you drive harder, now it responds more, right? And because you're a kettlebell swinger and athlete, right, you look at that and you go, okay, one of the things that you can do to improve your performance is either swing more kettlebells or focus on something you've never focused on.
Yeah.
Right? The easiest way to actually create improvement is to focus on something you've never focused on. Right? It's that isometric component, that still motion, that 100% effort. Right? Because if you can get more activation out of tissue, that load goes down. This is the only way. Right? You can't increase the activation rate of muscle with, unfortunately, dynamic exercise. Because as soon as I change that area to that movement, the load changes.
Yeah.
Right? So the 10-pound dumbbell is, as you know, it's going to be heavy.
Yeah.
Not as heavy. Not as heavy. Not as heavy. Not as heavy. Virtually zero.
Yeah.
Right? And you're going like, oh, let's use all this stuff. So you focus on the inertial aspects of that as well. So how do I transfer this between X and Y? Right? Versus, I need to be really strong here. I need to be really strong here. I need to be really strong here at maximal levels. So when you go through that, it's just light. Right? One of the things that the guy with the Giants said with 6 minutes of use. That stays. That's professional athletes. Right? You look at that and go, if you get 30% more out of professional athletes.
Yeah.
Right? And then the other side, you go, they historically use isometrics. Right?
Oh, that really helped my collarbone. Like doing the isometrics, it healed a lot faster than what, the doctor was saying.
Right? You look at the MAT stuff, right? Because you have huge success with MAT.
Yeah.
Right? The cool thing is MAT increases the firing rate of the muscle tissue by 275%.
Yeah.
609. It's like, right? This is MAT study, because MAT focuses on corrective isometrics, which is really cool, because well, you see the therapeutic aspect of it. It's like, okay, also, that other side of it, we have the sports performance side of it. I don't want to really sit there and have people focus on that. It's strong, right? So actually, shoes off and stand up for a second.
Oh.
Yes.
I want to try the dead stuff.
Yeah.
I always see that in your pictures. Oh, so do I just?
Yeah, like you're normal deadlift. So squat down, chest up, arms straight. Like you're doing normal.
Yeah.
Right. So the difference is like, it's not going to move. So keep your ass down and try to maintain that form at that position, right? So knees forward a little bit more. There you go, chest up. Chest
No.
up. And sort of try to
I thought I
straighten
had
out.
to do that
Don't
upstairs.
Try to lift the bar.
No, I didn't do that yet.
Yeah.
Right. So
I will.
Normally, what people
You
do
test
is
it out?
just go,
No, I think I've been allocated to come and use it.
As you walk.
yeah. Versus here, so just like go for a second, step back.
So you have different stages.
Boom.
Do you have any questions
There you
or
go.
anything about the Isophit
Sit
or?
down.
Keith's been telling me about it,
Oh, good.
and we saw it during its development stage.
Yeah.
And relax.
Now you see more of the final product. It will continue to
Right, so now
grow
what we can
and
actually do
change
is
a
go
little
up the
bit, but
whole range throughout it.
this is
Hey,
pretty
if
good.
anybody ever asked me about Brad, I'd always say magic.
And relax.
Magical?
Yeah, because he's put me
Right, so
back
normally
together a few times.
that
time?
load
You're
is-
I know, like,
You
damn
can't
good.
like actually with deadlift.
Yeah.
You lift a shit ton of weight, but it's not maximum.
You're out here, all right,
I'll
thanks
be in
for
touch with
coming.
you.
Absolutely.
More important,
See you next week.
when were you talking about maximum? Right? So,
So it is total resistance everywhere, because I would.
Yes.
Joint
However,
muscle.
the resistance you put into it will
Right, so that's why I said I'm gonna have an argument next week about isometrics, right? Because when you look at isometrics historically, it means no motion, right? There's zero joint motion. There's a ton of muscle activity.
Oh, yeah, parts that you need are attached underneath.
Right, so arguably
Oh,
it's
that's
stacked.
smart.
So is there no motion? No. There's no
easy
motion.
for shipping.
Yeah, that's why we.
Non-lost parts.
Yes.
Okay. So does the top unit folds down for shipping?
Yes.
And then the metal saver comes off?
You can actually like fold down.
Yeah, Brad, doesn't he have like a,
Yep.
like a
Y'all just
suitcase
fold- yep.
on?
Yep.
No, but
y'all
that
just-
cl- this
Like maybe the
won't
first
Oh,
use
the
it.
Umar?
And then after
So you
that.
can, when you slide it up to 90, you take it off.
So.
And then the,
Just
just
the
that goes vertical, that will just slide down, and then the Umar will just come
the edging. Bring your legs, one leg straight back.
Shipped me something last
Right there.
week.
I feel like
I was like, so what do you put that in?
And he's like,
Yeah, that's what it is.
everything goes
My
together.
name's Keith, by the way.
I'm
This is
Jenna.
My wife, Lynn.
I'm Jen.
Right? But feel how instant that was.
Yeah.
I drive harder, right? I feel that more.
Yeah, it's more concentrated.
Right? No other glute exercise in life you've ever done. Right? Think about all the times you swung the kettlebell. Like you
So is
probably
the
close.
red padding on the half circles for prettiness or?
Yeah.
There's function to them.
Well,
I was gonna say when you pack it,
Yeah.
it comes down.
That too,
Goes
that
way
too.
back there.
There's
Full range of
multiple
this.
reasons
You
for
know,
it.
never noticed it.
You know what I mean? You feel like this.
I think he's starting to add more colors to it. We had the ones that he just sold, 2 of them were orange. So the color that is the new color of the logo, they're orange now, so those are outside on the gym floor. And then there's 2 black ones.
Awesome.
So they're trying to add a little bit more color.
But yeah, get in and
So
experience
the red
stuff.
is classic.
So-
They
Can't
had
wait
red
to
ones
try.
before as well,
Yeah.
so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like, it'll change everything about the way you look at stuff.
So then I can come back and try it out. Get more information to your own.
Oh, I think I've been on.
It's awesome.
Perfect.
Excellent job.
Thank you, sir.
Really good.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it was very good.
Informative.
Very
yeah.
Learn
very-
something.
Oh, I did a lot.
You're gonna get your ass back in here? No.
Perhaps, because that number 6 is driving me nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
She'll
yeah.
have to figure that out herself.
Yeah, and like it's those small little details of just looking at it and going, okay, well that's why that's number 6.
Blood pressure's too
See, I
low,
look pretty-
I
I
don't
look
have
pretty
any
good for
pain yet.
85.
Zero muscle strength.
I know. Crazy. See?
Strength in
See?
both, the
Yeah.
only problem there, but aging.
Yeah, well, and that's what it is,
I
right?
hate that idea.
Those are the things you want to avoid. So,
Oh.
I need some alcohol.
You need some alcohol? I'm gonna take time home.
Okay.
Are you okay to clean up here?
Yeah, absolutely.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you, sir. I will see you tomorrow.
Will you
Okay.
here?
He is here tomorrow.
Thanks for your-
Is there everything? Thanks, Brad.
Michelle,
seeing
thank
you.
you. Great to see you.
Excellent meeting you.
See you.
We will see you soon.
Yeah, I think he's signing me up.
Perfect.
He's very good at following me.
Voluntary you.
Bye.
Yeah, that's okay. Good to see you.
Yeah, no, take out this computer. Are you drinking on the gym floor? No. Just you're allowed. How's it going? I met you earlier. I can't remember your name.
Sienna.
Sienna?
Yeah.
Martin. Martin, very nice to meet you, sir. So, what do you guys think?
Oh, that was really interesting.
Really interesting.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever really heard of this type of exercise before, right?
No.
Because it's not quite resistance, is it? Or yeah, okay.
Let's call it pure resistance.
Sure. Okay.
It actually is. It's the easiest way to develop, or fastest and safest way to develop muscle strength, right? Because an immovable object, like your goal with resistance training, is to actually resist the motion, right? That's why you lift heavier weights and it's harder to move. An immovable object, you can't move it, meaning it's perfect, right? It's based off your effort, right? So if you want to pull harder, you pull harder. If you want to pull less, you pull less. And the cool / unfortunate part is we don't have a force measure on here, so you don't know how hard.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no show of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So whether you're lifting
It's
700 pounds or you're lifting 30 pounds, it's still going to be hard for you. So it takes out the ego, and usually when you take out the ego, you actually improve form and technique, right? Because it's like, oh, I want to lift more, I want to lift more. So your goal becomes about lifting the weight versus resisting the motion, right? And that's always that risk. So with this, it's like, well, how much are you lifting? Who cares? Do you feel it instantly right here? So, but come over here for a second.
Okay.
Right, and it literally will take you like a nanosecond to actually feel it. So all we're gonna have you do is sitting at the edge. So we're just gonna drive your arms straight up. That's it. Right.
Okay.
So it's not complex at all, and there's another you actually will slide deeper back. Yeah, so it's in the right. Now with your arms, lock those elbows out and drive back. You're gonna feel that. Right, so you're trying to you're just trying to reach back behind you. And you feel that right up there.
Yeah.
It's pretty instant.
Yeah.
Try harder. You know how that it can increase flow?
Yes.
Instantly.
Yeah.
Right? Don't try so hard. Now it's less.
Yeah.
Try harder,
And that hurts too.
right? And you look at that and you go, well, she's not moving.
My
Really?
face is probably getting red.
Yeah. Right now, if you turn your hands this way, right, where do you feel that? Feel how that jumped right to there?
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. So I just met her. And I can tell you exactly where she's going to feel that. But I can do that with everything on her body, which is kind of cool because it's simply response to force and understanding the architecture of the musculature,
You might be over.
right? Which is kind of cool, right? So just sort of sit over here on the edge.
Oh.
Yeah, and what was that like? Not even good. Oh, it didn't matter. So turn this way. So, because guess what? If you were in shape and you tried did it for a minute, you would have tried harder, and it would have responded to the same thing. It wouldn't have mattered. You wouldn't have been able to move it. So that person who's in amazing shape who does that for a minute, trying it as best they can, they still suck at it, which is awesome. Right? It's the most humbling exercise experience ever. And then reaching sort of straight out. Right? So if you did it this way, feel how you're going to feel it right here. Right? If you turn this kind of this way, feel how you feel it here. Right? So it's like an instantaneous muscle response, just making it safer and easier. Cool. Right? So if you're new to exercise and you want to get back into exercise, there isn't a better way to start.
You can really get every muscle of your body too.
Yep. And what you're learning is all I have to do is rotate my hand, and guess what? It does something different. And so we can educate people that don't just do this. Gee, why do I have shoulder dysfunction? Well, maybe you needed to do this, and maybe you need to do this, and maybe you need to do this. But maybe the weight, it doesn't actually match that. Maybe the weight is too hard. Maybe if you look at all those obstacles that we've actually just overcome, right? It's the best calf exercise machine on the planet. It's the best glute machine exercise with your butt. It's the best ab exercises out of any machine out there. Right? And people go, oh, really? But you're not moving. It's like, yeah, but what I wanted to, and that's where we started. What we need to identify is movement is essential.
Yeah, and you're isolating the different parts, and that's when you really feel it, when the rest of your body is static and these muscles are activated.
Right? And the really cool thing is what we've failed to understand and recognize in that gym-based world. If I'm doing a bench press, how many muscles are really static? Right? Virtually all of them outside my shoulder, my elbow, and that's. So call it, and there's 5 joints to your shoulder, but let's simplify it and sort of say, okay, your shoulders and your elbows are the only 2 moving things. The rest of it, though, isn't, or it's shitty form. If I'm doing a squat, I'm not doing a squat going, that would be dumb, right? Or if I'm doing like this, right? We go, hold this up, hold this straight, hold the bar, and go down, and come up. Okay, so once again, I've chosen to do more isometrics in an exercise than I did dynamics. But we look at it and go, oh my God, you're moving. Cool. Bicep curl. This one's really ridiculous. Stand there, stay thing. If you go like this, it's cheating. It's like, okay, I'm moving 2 joints now. And that's dynamic exercise. I'm sorry. You're manipulating your load to do a really high qualified isometric. Right? Because otherwise you're cheating. So it's just that stuff you just never explored, never looked at. Versus here, you go, okay. Now you do everything instantly. It's safer, it yields a better result. It's all backed by science. Because anything that ever comes out of my mouth, I'm not that smart. I stole it from somebody who was really smart, and they put it in some sort of journal. And it's like, okay, cool, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I was the guy who just put it all together. It's like, here's something we were totally overlooking. Right? Because my issue was I had high blood pressure. I was like in shape. Physical specimen, all this is like, why is my blood pressure out of whack? Right? I wasn't stable. I was strong and great sort of exercise habits. It just wasn't stable. So my blood pressure was high.
So you're saying, in the very least 2 hours a week, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're
That's
suggesting.
what I recommend. Now, that said, not 2 1-hour sessions. I wouldn't recommend that because it's about frequency, more so than output. Right? Because people go, I got to exercise 3 hours a week, I can do that in 3 times. Well, if you exercise 6 days a week for half an hour, right? If you actually think about how many days a week you exercise. If you exercise 3 days a week, guess what? It's not even half a week.
Right.
So how the hell do you expect to improve if you're not exercising half a week?
Yeah. So do you do in that 2-hour session, do you do your whole body?
Yeah. Well, every workout will be a whole body workout, which is awesome, right? Because one of the things, if I'm driving really hard and I'm having to sustain the contractions and not move,
right? As you tell us, like, if I try harder, we put 16 harder, right? So all these programs. Exactly. Oh, it's like literally, so come underneath the bar, right there, just don't bend the elbow, no, just try to raise the arm, right? Feel pain on the shoulder, like this. Just think that.
Come in.
Feel that right there. But don't do that.
You're here.
Try hard.
How you doing?
What's going on?
What's up, buddy?
You don't respond?
I haven't been on my phone for about 4 hours. What's that?
You alright?
I bet. I bet.
You alright?
I bet. About a kiss.
Hug.
I'll give you a hug and a kiss. Right that way. If you want to right around, you got the new machine.
Huh? You got it?
Yeah, give me 10 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
Like,
I can talk to, Jack.
Jen.
Reach back.
I'm ready.
I did remember that.
Did you really?
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty good with those, as long as I know.
Raise up.
where something
Just drive back hard.
so much easier.
So,
This is a new one.
Turn those,
is that the new one?
Mm-hmm.
turn that arm up.
Wow.
Right? Feel how that just changed. Feel how quick that
So
changed.
this was my demonstration on how this works.
Right. So,
This was
have you lie down on your back?
for
That hurts.
aerosol.
Right, slide it.
Warrior training.
Slide back. Just basically.
Sorry, what is this?
So you've done some skull crushers
the
before in your life.
Speech
You're
that
gonna
you're
hear.
doing
Just press your hand up to my hand. You're trying to touch my hand. Yeah, you feel that there. Right. Just change direction of body force. Right. So you're trying to push it out, and you're gonna slide down. Right. Feel how you feel that.
So what do you do? Drive some people off the street to listen? Or?
No, people actually volunteer. So,
Wow.
the whole seminar.
Wow. Or is these seats actually filled?
They were, and there's actually.
Feel how
Your seat.
based off your
I know. I was quite surprised.
Yeah, that's
Wow,
great.
shocked.
You have a multitude
Well,
of
why
different
vitamin B that we don't have?
parts of your body, your arms stimulating, right, instead of like what you're saying.
Exactly. That means
Oh, good for him.
It's issue.
So we just listened at 14 years.
So,
Oh,
awesome.
Thank you so much.
You're very, very welcome. It's a pleasure to meet you. So, thank you for bringing me.
Everybody's up there. It's like a
I
trend.
know.
Any exercise today?
Oh,
I'm
exactly.
done.
Um,
My energy's at zero.
Absolute pleasure.
I don't think so.
You know,
Thank you, sir.
it's one of my good buddies. He's actually
Thank you very much. And as I said, booking with Jenna. Jenna's awesome. Colleen was awesome.
We
And,
met Colleen.
okay, perfect. We'll just go with her. Perfect. Well, you guys have a great night.
You too.
Thank you guys very much.
Still seriously get to that. I'm so shit.
Thank you. Oh.
Right.
I don't know.
So, was it pneumonia or is it just your hypochondria?
So